The All Progressive Congress APC has acknowledged that President Bola Tinubu's policies have led to economic hardship in Nigeria. Now, this was stated by the party's National Publicity Secretary, Barrister Felix Morka, in response to criticism from a former party official, Salihu Mohammed Lukman. Lukman had accused the party of bad governance and urged opposition leaders to unite against the APC in 2027.
While acknowledging the increased economic hardship, Morka defended the president's reforms as necessary to address long-standing economic problems, noting that President Tinubu is taking bold measures to reset the country's long-broken economy, to improve national security, and to restore the country to wholesome and sustainable development. We're joined this morning by public affairs analyst Abraham Great. Good morning, Abraham Great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning.
All right. Morka said that the president is making very bold reforms. He's taking very bold decisions to be able to restore our country and restore our economy. Do you agree with him?
Well, I agree with him to the extent that we've all seen and witnessed. Number one, we had a president who seems to be very ideological. We can see that from the way he led his campaign, but we can also see that from his antics from when he's gotten involved from the early 90s in the Nigerian political terrain. You can see that he's a man that is consistent with his ideas, with ideals, with the things that he wants to do. Some of us, maybe old enough will remember him in the 90s, particularly when he became governor of Lagos State. Before then, we knew what Lagos was. But saying that, translating that onto the grand scale of, at the national level, is a different ball game. But the way we will give kudos to him is that I'm not sure about how his vision is trickling down yet, but we can see a visionary leader. We can see someone who actually, in his mind, and consistently say to us, he seems to have an idea of where he's taking the nation to. But the thing is that the people are suffering. The people are, people are going through a lot in the country. And we keep hearing from the government or from the president that it will be tough at the beginning and stuff like that. But there are immediate measures that can alleviate a lot of this pain on people. And one of it is to ensure that, I'll put it this way, I've always spoken about the Maslow hierarchy of need. I'm sure all of us remember Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of need. And Maslow says that the basic human need is a physiological need, which is water, air, shelter. We have to ensure that every Nigerian have access to electricity, no matter what it is. No matter the level of reform we're trying to be, we should expedite to ensure that in every nooks and corner of the country, electricity becomes a priority. Number two, we have to ensure that the country is at such a point where everybody, not boreholes that we are fixing everywhere, like any other nation in the world, like Ivory Coast, like Ghana, we see this in developed countries all over the world. You should be able to open the tap. I lived in Ivory Coast for about 5 years in the 90s. I witnessed the war in Liberia, in Sierra Leone. I saw Nigerians' intervention. But one of the things that I continue to admire, even though I lived in Ivory Coast in the 90s, one of the things that I admire about the country is that there is no part of that country you go to that you will not have electricity. There is also no part of Ivory Coast that you go to that you'll be seeing borehole. In every home, you can open the tap and water will run from your tap, from your kitchen. We used to call Ivory Coast Petit Paris. Petit Paris meaning that small Paris. We should be able to turn Nigeria to such. And it's not going to be done just at the national level. It has to be cascaded to the state and also to local level. That every local chairman, governors have to be involved in the reformation of the country.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but they probably need to take a cue from the presidency, and seeing the body language of the presidency might make it easier. What the current reality of Nigerians, is, with inflation at 40%, inflation at 40%, inflation at 33, 32%, I believe. There's many signs that we still don't know where we're headed or what exactly the plan is, or that these things will improve in the near future. The dollar, of course, is currently 1,650 naira exchange rate. But before you even address some of these things, let's go back to one thing that you mentioned, about we knew how Lagos was before the Governor Tinubu then came into office. How was Lagos before he came into office as governor?
Well, I was born in Lagos and I grew up in Lagos, but I left Lagos 1997. But having left Lagos 1997, I'm always back in the country every year. Sometimes this year alone, I must have been in Nigeria like 6 or 7 times. Since that 1997, I'm always back in the country, no matter what it is. Now, I recall I grew up in Ikeja, and I recall almost every part. I went to school also in Mushi. I was born in Mushi. Almost every part of Lagos, you will pick up dead bodies. I mean, one of the reasons why I told my father I had to leave Nigeria was when my friend Chinedu was killed in Ikeja, where you call Olowu today, at the junction of Olowu. Armed robbers came in the middle of the night, not in the middle of the night, around 9:10 in the evening in Ikeja. During those days, they used to give us the date of when they are coming. And they shot. I also remember in Ezekiel Street, best friend of MKO Abiola, Alaji Sule, was killed right in my front. Like, I was living at number 9. They came and they shot the man dead. Those are the kind of things. I mean, you go on the street and you'll be picking up dead bodies. You see dead bodies on the road. Lagos was so unsafe. And I'll also tell you that before he became governor, Lagos was 7 million people. By the time he was leaving as the governor of Lagos State, it is already 12 million people in Lagos, nearly double the size. It is not because Lagos all of a sudden became a capital. Lagos has always become a capital, but some of the reforms, some of the initiative that it took make the state a lot safer, also make the state a lot more economically viable. Some of us will argue that, yes, he has his own flaws. He has some of the things that we can blame him for, his supremacy, the way he operates and stuff like that. But there's no doubt in the fact that we saw a leader amongst every governor in every part of the country at the time. Don't forget, Lagos is the smallest state in the country. And it is not because of the geographical location. Leadership plays a role. We can also see that in the way in which it builds succession. Another thing that is arguably something that we can fault him for. But when you look at it consistently since his time, you've seen a foundation that has been laid for a state that continued to go through reform and development. So that's what I pick. When I look at him as a leader, some people hate you for saying the truth about him. But when I look at him as a leader, personally, I've known him since the early 90s, since I was in secondary school. And I've seen his leadership. I don't agree with everything that he does, but I can tell you for a fact, and we can see at the national level, that he's a visionary leader. However, I haven't seen that. It's visionary leadership that I saw growing up.
I was just about to ask that, because you mentioned, about how, first of all, the insecurity and, armed robbery in Nigeria in the 90s was not peculiar to Lagos State. It was everywhere. In Benin, in the southeast, if you remember, there was the Bakassi boys that had to eventually come into, reality, in early 2000s, and that was as a result of the heightened insecurity that happened. If you remember the Anini days itself, those were things that were peculiar across Nigeria in the 90s. It wasn't a Lagos State, thing. And it wasn't necessarily, the emergence of, one person that eventually ended that level of insecurity across Nigeria in 1996 or 1999, I beg your pardon. So there's that part. The visionary leadership that you speak of, that changed the economic trajectory of Lagos State and some of all of that. Why is that so difficult to bring to the national level? And what exactly do you see as different, maybe like a different way of doing things now with the current administration, if we currently have the Naira exchanging at the worst that it has ever been. That's not even up for argument. It's the worst that it has ever been. This is the highest amount of money Nigerians are buying petrol with. We currently still have the highest number of out-of-school children. There's really nothing that is different that you can point at and say, okay, almost 2 years into the current administration, these things seem to be improving. So where is that leadership from Lagos on the national level today?
I'll put it down to a few things. Number one is, it is also known in leadership that one of the key things about leadership is vision. A leader must be able to set the pace and set a vision of where we are going. The next thing that I feel that is important for a leader is the team that you build. Now, one of the things that I could fault this administration for is the fact that you cannot use the same team that you used 25 years ago, 26 years ago to achieve what you want to achieve today, because the level of energy might no longer be the same. The drive might be the same, the passion might still be there, but the strength may no longer be there. Now, in saying that, you have to also look at the dynamics of how politics works. In some ways, a leader may want to move in a fashion, but then they are politically constrained in that this region wants you to do this, that one wants you to do that, so you're trying to please everybody. But a great leader must be able to break through all of that and be able to appoint the best. Let me quickly, if you can give me the time, let me quickly take you to the United Arab Emirates. One of the things that builds the United Arab Emirates that we all go to today, Dubai, is the fact that when they appoint a minister, I was shocked. I've been there. I mean, I go there often. But one of the things that shocked me was my wife was doing a master's, and one of their ministers was doing that master's with my wife in the UK at some point. And the overall head of police was with my wife doing the master's. And guess what? One of the things that they do is that once they appoint you over a place, you will appoint or you will employ the best mind anywhere in the world. So that person will be the one actually doing the work. You are qualified. You are Emirati. You are citizen of the UAE. But you will bring the best project manager, the best person on your field, either is from the US, either is from Nigeria. You look at one of the best buildings in Dubai today. It's designed by a Nigerian. But Nigeria, we are too insular. Everything, every office is, everywhere you turn in Nigeria is Nigerians. Every nation that has been reformed today, every industrialization involved people from other nations. Every great country is built by nationals from everywhere in the world. As Nigerians, you know, you put me as the Minister of Information, or you put me as Minister of Works, I'm looking at bringing my cousin, I'm looking at compensating people politically. When are we going to wake up and get to that point where you know that you are being assigned over this territory and you are bringing the best of mind anywhere in the world? Nigerians will still work with them, but we need to bring in experts from everywhere. We have a nation to form. That's one of the gaps that I see.
So should our focus right now be on looking for the best minds from the West and different parts of the world and importing into Nigeria? Are you saying that so far we do not have people that are qualified to do these jobs that are not necessarily related to these people in power?
Well, I'm not saying to the extent that that there is tribalism or there is nepotism or what have you. I'm just saying everybody is related to everyone in Nigeria. But I'm saying that we have a nation to build, so we need experts from everywhere. Look at even Jerusalem, look at Babylon, look every part of the world that has experienced reform at any point. And even if they have to go and bring them as slaves or they bring them as experts, you need people from everywhere, because no problem can be solved at the same level that it was created.
Okay, well, a lot of people wouldn't agree with with your point. I think there's Nigerians brilliant enough to build Nigeria if we are.
Let me add this to it for you. Let me quickly add this to you. By grace and privilege, I've lived out of Nigeria for close to 30 years of my years. I left Nigeria as a teenager. I've worked in different sector and different industry. I disagree with any Nigerian that disagree with me that we have enough Nigerians to solve every problem. The best countries in the world still brings in Nigerians and people from India, people from China. You do not have all the solution to fix your own problem. The best, every reformation in the world involve people from every part of the world.
Yeah.
Nigeria needs the world.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You can get counsel, you can get advice from experts from different parts of the world. Doesn't mean that you're going to make a Chinese person Nigeria's Minister for Agriculture.
No, it does not mean that you make them the minister. Like I give the
I mean, but we already have that here. We already have expatriate workers across the whole country. They are being guarded by our military. They are everywhere. If you look at half of the road construction that is done here is done by expatriate workers.
In Nigeria, expatriates are in Nigeria in the private sector. I bring a lot of foreign direct investment into Nigeria as well. I bring in expatriates into Nigeria as well. A lot of those people work with private companies and what have you. And I'm not advocating that expatriates or foreigners should come and be ministers. What I'm saying, every area where we need to reform our country, we need mind from every part of the world.
All right. So I don't want us to overflog this. I don't want us to overflog this, because it's not a key part of our conversation this morning. We're trying to have your own perspective or your own assessment of the current administration. You say he's a visionary, leader. He has a vision for Nigeria. All through the campaigns, it was a struggle hearing that vision. He didn't show up for, any TV interviews, even till date. We still don't have an opportunity to have a one-on-one with the president to interview him and hear about this vision that you speak of. And so, it would be nice if you can share, this vision that, Mr. President has for Nigeria. And of course, maybe also let us know with confidence, that you believe that this is what he actually wants for Nigeria. And then also, have you noticed, I asked this before, anything different with the way that we do things today? We still have spent 21 billion naira building a house for the vice president. We still bought a presidential jet that still has not been properly accounted for. We still spend 90 billion naira sending people on Hajj, a religious pilgrimage. So is there any difference in the way that we do things today? And how confident are you that after these 4 years of the current administration, we will have a seemingly better Nigeria?
There is no underestimating how vision and where vision can take you. And whatever you focus on magnifies. If you do not focus on what the president as the candidate was saying, possibly because you are focused on another candidate, you would not have been hearing his vision. He shared his vision. One of the things that that took people off him was when he talked about he will not do debate, he would rather do town halls. It's better than Bala Blue or what have you. That's what he was saying, inferring to. He did say from the beginning of the campaign that he will not do debate. He will do town halls.
And you think that is good enough?
Well, there are different styles. I'm not saying he's the best.
Okay.
I know personally, and I'm saying this to you personally, I know personally that he had a knee injury just before the primaries. Sorry, not injury, surgery rather. And every campaign, either is in America, either in the UK, has a strategy that they want to go about. His strategy worked, and he became, but I knew he was in several town halls. A town hall, in my opinion, is more effective than debate. You've seen that with Kamala Harris right now.
Yeah, but there's nothing stopping you from doing both. Just like we currently are seeing now.
I'm not here to defend the president. I'm saying to you, you wanted my perspective, right? I will not be the one to be queried about it because he's already gone. His strategy worked for him. He has achieved what he wants. We need to, also as media, we need to start, our energy also need to start focusing on solutions rather than us reiterating, the problems over and over and over. And I give you this. Again, in every country where there has been development, where there has been reformation, industrial revolution, they've not been brought about by federal government. You look at America, for example, we have what we call the tycoons, the John D. Rockefeller, JP Morgan, and what have you. It is private sector that reforms the country. But the government must provide enabling environment, which is why I went to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of need. If the people do not have electricity, or people are paying, over the hood for diesel to power their industries, we are not going to have industrial revolution. Those are my qualms. Right. Government need to provide the basic, the basic amenities, the physiological need, what human being and people need to thrive. Now, going back, and I'll go back into the president and what have you. The vision is there. Driving the vision requires the will of the team that you put together. One of the simple things that can be done right now, in my opinion, is something that has been completely overlooked in the country and is driving inflation crazy. The Price Control Act of Nigeria has only, the last time I know that it was amended or written was in 1977. So today, well, I have few properties of my parent in the country, but who determines? There's no tribunal anywhere that determines the price of how my mom will say, okay, this is how much she's giving out this house, or this how much, or my property. Everybody, two things affecting us. There is no price control in the country. Secondly, we're importing far too much rather than producing.
Okay, I mean, there are people who would argue against price control being a measure, but then let's look at the actual policies that the administration of the day have, sort of kick-started. We know the major policies that have been the, major conversations, the unification of the markets and then the removal of subsidy. Recently, we have found out that it wasn't, removal of subsidy wasn't the main conversation. This time around, it was shortfalls. And some have said that shortfalls is another term to describe subsidies. So share with us your thoughts on these policies, the removal of fuel subsidy, the unification of the exchange market rate. But let's focus first on the removal of fuel subsidy and the recent development with shortfalls.
Well, my understanding of the subsidy regime is that it's a cacophony for endemic or continued corruption. I did mention the names like John D. Rockefeller just now, but you will still know that a lot of his companies are still in major countries like Nigeria, almost all over the world, like ExxonMobil and stuff like this. And I would not want to delve into that because the poverty of most nations is actually triggered for several decades, if not for several decades now, by some of those outside forces. I don't want to go too much into it because it's a very critical critical topic. But I'll say this to you: a government that is wise will remove subsidy, either it is in Nigeria or it is in Mali or it is in Congo, because what you have is people telling you that they took crude and they are bringing back refined products into the country, when in fact statistics says that they might not even be bringing up to 25% of what they are reporting that they are getting subsidies for. I know how that regime works, but it looks like an excuse. The next thing now is, since this has been removed, the funds that we are saving, where is it going to? From what I can see, we have now seen double or triple in some states, federal allocation to state level. We have now seen the willingness from the federal government, particularly the body language of the president, to drive for local government autonomy, ensuring and insisting and consistently advocating for, similar to what he did in Lagos by automating Lagos with SAP, Oracle, to ensure that whatever either is the derivation or the federal allocation, it can go straight to the local government. I'm not one who just focuses on blaming. You can blame government. Since I was born, people have been blaming government. I've been fighting government.
I don't know the perspective about blaming government, I don't know if it's necessarily about blaming government or if it is about holding the government to account. Because the truth is this: the government of the day is the one that is responsible for the welfare and the economy of the country. So if things are not going well, Citizens have a right to ask questions, and somebody has to be held responsible. You know, if things are not going right, if the economy is taking a dip, there has to be somebody. And you can't find a solution. If we keep talking about solutions, we have to go back to where the problem originated from, find out if there are consequences and if there's anybody that needs to bear the consequences. And I'd like us now to shift the conversation to the administration's the way in which they have handled situations, criminal matters, or even civilian matters. There are many who have complained about the high-handedness of law enforcement agents in this administration. The protesters were arrested and they've been charged for treason, which we both know that treason is a crime punishable by death. And there are Nigerians who have criticized the lawyers who have said that this is basically the government acting against the rule of law. They're not being subject to the rule of law, and they're being high-handed. So I want you to talk to us about your thoughts regarding the End Bad Governance protests, the arrest of protesters, the charge of treason, and your thoughts in general about how this administration is faring with regards to observing the rights of the average Nigerian.
Thank you very much, and you are very correct that somebody always must be held accountable. You're very right in that, and I'm also, what I'm adding to it is that also as citizens we must also take responsibility as well. Whilst we hold our leaders accountable, we must also remember that we become leaders, and if all we just do is always fight and fight and fight government, we will not, we do not take responsibility. There are some things as citizens that we also might be doing wrong, and we can all fix ourselves from the bottom up. We will one day become the leader that other people will criticize. In terms of what the government is doing, there are different bodies and different parastatals in the country, and we do not live in an anarchy. What that means is that we cannot all just do what we want. There are laws. According to the Constitution of Nigeria, I believe is section 40 and 45. You see, where one person's right to protest stop, another person, there is also another clause for public interest, to be sure that properties are not damaged, that other people's lives are not threatened, that things are not destroyed. So when people go beyond, and most people who protest don't know this, that there are acts to protest. I studied law. So in protest, sometimes you are given, maybe this is 6 miles that you should go, or you are expanding it to 18 miles. In the act, you will give the roads, all the areas that you will cover, to the police, and it will be approved for you that this is the area where you are. What we want is that because we are agitated, we want to do things uncontrolled, but we also do not want other aspects of the country.
Sorry, may I interject? May I interject? I want to know which act you're quoting, because if it's the one that I think that you're quoting, what it says is that where the citizens give the direction and the routes, that they're going to pass whilst they're protesting, the police has a right to ensure that they're secure. It did not mandate them to give. I just want to be sure that it's the same one we're talking about.
Now, I don't have the act in top of my head, and I studied law in the UK. In the UK, you would have to, we do protest in the UK, you would have to give where you want to protest to the police. You will give your route, and the police has the right to give to you protection on those routes. That is why you will not see somebody that is carrying placard in the UK to stop the Queen from going to the new Prime Minister going to the Queen. You will not see them branch somewhere else. They will stay on the road that they've been given permission to protest.
But that's really like the UK.
That's in the UK, all right? And, if for any reason, because we still need to know exactly what this case is about, we're going to be speaking with someone right after, we say goodbye to you about, this case. But if for any reason, I'm meant to be protesting, here in Lagos, in Lekki, and for some reason I stumble into Ikate and continue my protest with my placard, is that a treasonable offense in your opinion?
I don't think if treasonable is the word, and I do not think that the law or power should be used to be able to just take people and imprison people. What I'm saying is that
Well, that's what seems to have been done, you know, and that's what we're referring to. You know, you instead, you know, seem to be, you know, painting the picture, you know, that these protesters went, you know, way above hand. But the main question really is, did you see anything about the End Bad Governance protest that seemed to be treasonable?
Okay, I'm saying what I'm saying on the back end of some of the protests. I was actually in Nigeria. So also, I was a visiting panelist or visited panelist on some of the panels that was set up after ENSA. So I attended some of the, so I'm speaking from the back end that we need responsibility. We cannot just blame law enforcement. There are also laws in the country that we all must also try to adhere to. But let me quickly finish this. I'm not saying that government should use the tool of the law to oppress people. No, that's not what I'm saying. But also what I'm saying is that as citizens, we also must take responsibility. And finally, like I said, someone is was recently arrested at the airport. And my take on that is finally to say that if there are invitations from the DSS, or if there are rules around something, obey the law.
All right. I mean, I believe that you're referring to the NLC chairman, Joe Ajaero, who was arrested at the airport and has been released. And part of what had been the criticism leveled against that is they invited him, they asked him questions, and if they wanted to arrest him, they should have arrested him, you know, much earlier. But I mean, these are ongoing conversations, and we have Deji Adeyanju joining us next to give us more details about the End Bad Governance protest as well. Thank you very much, Abraham. Great for joining us.